Okay, well, we're going to get started. I know that we have a sellout crowd here, but I think for the sake of those who are here, we're going to get started. And as people come in, they can catch up with us. But uh, we have two forums scheduled. Obviously, today here at the Liberal Arts Campus, and tomorrow, same time, at the Pacific Coast Campus in FF 107. So I'm going to begin by just introducing this, and then I'm going to ask Dr. Peterson to come up and actually walk us through questions that have risen, primarily those raised by student trustee Troya, regarding the data on program discontinuance. So we wanted to give people an opportunity to see and to match up the data as to where the administration and the program discontinuance process came up with the data, how it was used, how it was applied, and ensure that people understand where it's coming from. Let me begin by saying that for those of you who are here, thank you for coming. And along the way, if there's a specific question that you want to ask, I'll turn it over to Dr. Peterson to see how he wants to address that. But if you can let him get through most of the presentation, that might make it easier, because there are several questions that are going to be answered along the way. Let me also say that the district takes very seriously, and when I say the district, that's not just the administration, that's the faculty leadership, the classified leadership, everyone involved in the college, take very seriously the work that we do here. And so that's why we're having this forum. Although there have been a number of questions that have been posed in a public board meeting, when I sit down with the student leadership, those questions were never posed directly to me. So we've tried to go about this in a way to get to answer these questions and provide students an opportunity to see where the differences lie. Let me also say that there's been a series of accusations made, not just about the data, but about the way the district conducted its business. We have directly responded to student trustee Troya and to ASB President Lorenzini, and certainly those responses can be made available to anyone who asks. Furthermore, there have been questions raised directly to me from several students that I want to make sure and answer before we continue. The last question I received, I'll start with first, is what impact would the recall election that has been launched have on the district's budget? And let me just make clear that every election is paid for by the college. Every election that we have, the college is responsible for paying that cost. So whether it be a regular election, special election, recall election, the district bears the cost of that election. In most elections, the cost is shared between Long Beach Unified School District and the city of Long Beach, because we conduct our elections together. So for example, the next regular election, next April, that cost would be shared between the three agencies. If there is a recall election or a special election, the district would pay for that on its own. So in working with the city, city clerk's office, we've estimated that cost at about $1.4 million for the special election. The other question that was raised is, have we had a chance to respond directly to student trustee Troya? And that answer is yes. And we have also asked student trustee Troya to provide us all the information that he has, that he contends conflicts with the data that we've used, and to date, we have not received that information. So we're hoping that at some point that information is provided so that we can more clearly illustrate the differences in the data. At this point, we're just going based on the information that he provided verbally, and hopefully that provides a clearer picture of where we are. So with that, I want to turn it over to Dr. Peterson to walk us through the data Along the way, several of the vice presidents are here, and I will be here if there are specific questions that are raised regarding either the process, the data, the information that's used, how it's used, the information provided to the trustees, and what the actual regulations specify in terms of my responsibility, the responsibility of the Academic Senate, the Academic Council, President's Leadership Group, and any other task force or body that's been formed on campus to provide advice, counsel, and recommendations to the superintendent president. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Peterson.
Hello. So the goal today is to walk you through so you have access to the tools of the data that we used in the program discontinuance process, and to address some of the data discrepancies that have come up. We're going to lay this out in components. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to walk you through some data discrepancies. 2 weeks ago, the vice presidents working with ASB held a student forum. And during the student forum, Trustee Troya provided a data where he addressed discrepancies in 3 key areas: the number of impacted students, the degrees and certificates awarded, and the job growth. And so we're going to walk through those 3 areas. Then we're going to walk through 2 examples of the exact criteria that was used in the program discontinuance process. One for a program here at LAC, Interior Design, and then again for PCC, Aviation Maintenance. So you can see 2 examples of where we pulled the data and how the decision was made. And then we're going to show you the summer teach-out schedule as well. So what I'd like to do is do the first piece on the data discrepancies, and then take a moment to answer any questions, and then move into the second piece on the program discontinuance criteria. Okay, so the first piece that we had come in, for program discontinuance data, we looked at the number of impacted students. We reported that as being 130. In the data provided by Trustee Troya, that was listed as 363. So I want to walk you through those numbers. Okay, so where does the 363 come from? Let me show you. So each year we ask our programs departments to create plans for the next year, and we try to give them data to work from. So you'll see on our website, we have data for planning and program review. And here, the most recent data we have available is 2011, 2012. This is available for all the programs. And if you scroll down, you're going to see that we've broken it out by our instructional schools. If you scroll down, you'll find that underneath the trades and industrial technologies, number 5 there is aviation. So I'm going to click on aviation. And here, as we pull up data, okay, here we go. So what you'll see is, this first slide here, you'll see overall enrollment annual for 2011, 2012, and you'll see the number there, the 363. So this is where that 363 number is coming from. Okay, so this is the annual enrollment for the full year, 2011, 2012. I'm going to scroll down. Can I just check that? Trying to be smarter than me, which is not hard. Okay, so if you scroll down, you'll find that on the second page, this is broken down by term. So that first number, 363, was the annual enrollment. If you look here, you'll see that this is broken down by term, so you can see in fall 2011, because 2011, 2012 is made up of fall 2011 and spring 2012. So fall 2011, there's 174 enrollments, and spring 2012, there's 189 enrollments. Okay, so this is the data that was pulling for the 363. So I want to walk you through this now and what this means. Okay, so there's a difference between enrollment and unduplicated headcount. Enrollment is a total number of seats filled in all of the classes in a program. So let me give you an example. we could count the same student multiple times in multiple classes. So you see my little example here that Juan takes aviation maintenance 202 and 203 in the fall semester. This is counted as 2 enrollments because Juan's filling 2 seats, but it's actually only 1 student. Okay. Now, unduplicated head count is individual students. That is the student, Juan, regardless of the number of classes he's taking in a program. So there's a difference between enrollment and unduplicated head count. When we look at the data, I showed you that second slide as we broke this down by terms for the annual year 2011-2012, you'll see that 174 in the fall plus 189 in the spring equals the 363 enrollments. So a total of 363 seats were filled for the year 2011-2012. Okay, so what that means is if we were looking at individual students, the total number of students, the largest number of students we could be looking at would be the largest number of one of the terms. In this case, the largest number is in the spring, so the most individual students that could possibly be would be 189. What we find in aviation maintenance is it's really set up as as you're supposed to take 2 courses each semester to move through the program. And so most students take 201, 202, or 202 and 203 and 204 through. So we found that most students were taking 1 to 2 courses. So it's that 189 enrollments actually equals 126 individual students for the spring 2012 semester. So you can see why there's a difference between the overall enrollments of 363 and then the 126, which is 1 semester. Now granted, when we were providing this with the programs for them to prepare for the next year, we gave them the most available data. At the time, that was 2011-2012. As we came into the program discontinuance, we had fall 2012 data, so we used the most recent data. So that's where you're seeing here the 130 number. So we had in fall 2012, 203 enrollments, so 203 seats filled, but that represented actually 130 individual students. So you can see where that discrepancy looks like, but how it's really counting 2 different things. So when we look at individual students, we're looking at that 130. Now we provided, I provided to the ASB the numbers for enrollments and actual headcount for all of the programs. We're going to create a link and put that onto the website, so that's available as well. So again, that'll be a resource for you to pull that data from. Well, we're going to put this on specifically a specific page for program updates for program discontinuance to capture it so it's easier for students to find. But I'm looking over here to where we would update the fact sheet as well. Okay, so that's the first discrepancy we look at. Okay, the second discrepancy that was brought up by Trustee Troya was degrees and certificates awarded by program. And so you're going to see for aviation maintenance, in program discontinuance data, we reflect that there's 6.5 degrees that were completed annually over a 6-year period. And so what we did was, because we recognized there's variance between years, so we took 6 years of data and then divided that by 6 to get an annual number. The certificates we came up with, that annual number over 6 years was 9. You can see that it's very different from the numbers provided by Trustee Troya. So we're gonna have to walk through where this data is coming from and how you can check that. I'm going to walk you through it. That's one of the pieces. Okay, so the source of student data. The student data that we collect at Long Beach City College. So if you look at the second side here, all of our data comes into our internal student database. You know, when you enroll in courses, we track that. We track your grades, we track your success, your progress through. And then we're required to report that information to the Chancellor's office. Now, where this is different between these data pieces, the Chancellor's office, that's the state, is what we report. You can imagine there are 112 colleges. So, and them trying to coordinate all this data, they establish very firm dates. So by this date, you report. And then this is the number. So it's very static at the date. The student data doesn't work that way, right? So a student might meet a requirement of a degree a week after because admissions and records is still processing. So it might a week after, you would get credit for that, but it wouldn't reflect on the chancellor's office because there's a date that it's due in order to be consistent. So so the student database is dynamic. So there's going to be some minor fluctuations that I'm going to show you. And then the data mart in the chancellor's office is the constant. The data mart is what you have access to. So I'm going to walk you through that to be able to see and then kind of talk through some of the minor discrepancies there. Okay, so I've got the link on here. Let me take you to it. So if you go onto the chancellor's office website, they have an amazing data mart there, and it has multiple queries, a lot of different information you can pull. This one here is called it's under outcomes. It's called the Programs Awards Summary. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through just how I did it so you can pull the information. Under here, it says select district college. Because we're a single district college, you can either do district or college, doesn't matter. Pull up Long Beach. Academic year. Okay, so when we did this program, the data we pulled for 6 years was from 2005-06 to 2010-11. Since then, they've updated, but we're going to look at to be consistent, we'll start with the 2010-11. Selected all awards, program type. So aviation maintenance is hidden underneath engineering and industrial technology. So I click there, and you'll see aeronautical and aviation technology. I'm going to click the whole section, right? And then view report. And then what pops up down here below is your little report. And you can actually, if you like to see it better, there's the export little button up there. You can export it into Excel and move it around. But just for quickly here, you'll see the total is 31. Associate's degrees awarded in 10-11 was 15. Certificate requiring 30 to 60 semester units, 16. So we pull that data right back into here. So what I've done for you, CO is the chancellor's office data. So again, you'll see I put the 15 from 10-11, and you'll see I put in the 16 for certificate. So you can do the exact same thing. You can pull for the 6 years the data directly from the chancellor's office for degrees and certificates. And then you do you add them all up, divide by 6, and you'll get the annual number. So where you're seeing is there's some slight variations occurring in the data here. Let me explain the first one for you. The first one is, if you notice, it looks like, you'll see like in 2005, 2006, it looks like one of those degrees was completed after the deadline for the chancellor's office. So it was counted in our database in 5-6, but it shows up in 6-7. That's why there's 4 and 3. So some of it is that timing I talked about there. So that's what you're going to see there. So that there's some minor discrepancy, but you see it's really close. It's still the 6.3, 6.5. The reason why our data counts 9 instead of the chancellor's office 5.5 is because we really try to give the programs the benefit of the doubt. As you know, students are required to apply for a degree or certificate. So if they don't apply, it doesn't get recorded to go to the chancellor's office. When we run our report, we run all students who have met all the requirements. And so that's why we actually have captured all students who met the requirements, and it's at that 9 versus the 5.5. So we gave the program a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt of completing. So this is where you can find that data. Easy again, just pulling. I went each year and just pulled it and then added them all up and divided them by 6. And so that's available for you to do for any of these programs. Okay, so Trustee Troy just mentioned this question about FAA certificates and what we count. So what's the difference between that 9 and the 120? The Chancellor's Office, and I've got the link for you here as well so you can see from the Chancellor's Office handbook. The Chancellor's Office identifies 2 types of certificates, a certificate of achievement and a certificate of accomplishment. A certificate of achievement, it's more rigorous and it's official. So it can appear on the transcript by name, so a student gets credit on the transcript. Usually it has to be at least 18 units. It has to be approved by the Chancellor's Office, so it has to go through a rigorous review process where they look at job growth data, where they look at other programs offering it, this larger process. And and it's officially recognized by the Chancellor's Office. So that's our official data. Then there are certificates of accomplishment. So there's flexibility for programs to try to chunk work into smaller segments to help give students some credit for the work that they're doing. These things, though, are not recognized by the Chancellor's Office because they don't go through the same rigorous process that the Chancellor's Office has identified. So they're not recognized. So when we do this review, we are looking at what is recognized by the Chancellor's Office. The FAA certificates are not considered by the Chancellor's Office, and so they're not considered in determining the program's success. And so that's why that 9 directly comes from the data from the Chancellor's Office Data Mart. It does not reflect the certificates. So that's where those numbers come from. There wasn't an intent to hide. It was really trying to pull directly from that data that's official.
This is a big point. It's the difference between an educational institution issuing a certificate or degree, which means something. It goes on your transcript. You have to take additional courses to accomplish this degree, as opposed to the FAA certification, which we do not have to be, we do not have to have the same rigor to award. You do not need an AA program to award an FAA certificate. We could do that in a separate capacity, which we are attempting to do now, which we are working with different players in the community to just offer the FAA certification. So that is the difference between program discontinuance and having a contract education course that just deals with specific employer-required certification. The difference is that a certificate of achievement or an AA degree confers something different than just a certificate. So we could continue offering FAA certification. And we have been in conversations with people in the community about continuing to offer FAA certification. But that is different than offering an AA degree, an actual degree. So that is a big difference in terms of what we consider a degree versus a certificate. So that's why they're not counted in the same light. We do not have to have an accredited program by an accreditation, I mean our college accreditation to offer an FAA certificate. We could still do that, and we're trying to work out an arrangement where we could still offer some of the certificate courses so that we can continue to provide that need in the community. But that is different, and the cost is very different between just offering a FAA certificate and offering an AA degree or an AS degree. Yep. No, it would be, oh, sure. The question was what would the funding difference be? Would we still be state funded for the FAA, offering the FAA certificate versus the AA degree? And the answer is no. We would go directly to the employer to pay for that, or the student to pay for that certificate. So that's the difference between offering a state recognized AA degree or certificate versus, in many cases, what happens is we enter into contracts with employers to offer specific training, but that cost is covered by the employer, or sometimes an organization that brings several employers together to ask us to provide specific training. But that would not be state funded.
Are there any questions about how to find the data on the degrees and certificates? And again, we have an hour working through this, so I'm available after to work through also other programs that we'll set up. So there's ability for follow-up through these pieces. But I just wanted to give you as many tools as possible, and we'll post this so it's available as well. Okay, job growth. So I mentioned to you that when we look back here, when we look at degrees and certificates and the certificate of achievement, there's a requirement by the Chancellor's Office to look at job growth or labor market information. And so they set some standards for that. Now, the data that we used in program discontinuance, you can see they're reflected, and then the data provided by Trustee Troy 2 weeks ago, you can see there. So there's a difference there. So let's talk about where this data comes from. So what job growth data is required by the state? So the state expects a very broad review of labor market information. And so they have established, working with the Centers of Excellence, and I'm going to ask Vice President Biden to come up and explain, walk through how this works and then what the components are.
Thank you, Greg. Let me just clarify for you what the Centers of Excellence are and why they even exist. The Chancellor's Office as a third primary mission has economic workforce development as a mission. The Centers of Excellence are funded through the Economic Development Program in the Chancellor's Office. They are designed to gather data and do research on industry clusters in the state of California. It's divided up into 9 general regions, and those industry clusters are focused on the ones in our own regional economy. The Center of Excellence did the report a year ago that was used for the data that you saw in the program assessments made by the deans and academic affairs. And so the Center of Excellence uses primarily information that comes from EMSI, Economic Modeling Specialists International. EMSI is an entity that is used by the federal government, by the state government, and is recognized as the primary provider of data by the Chancellor's Office to provide job information and job growth projections. It's a combination of about 90 different data sources. Let me just give you some of the examples of things that they use. So for example, the U.S. Department of Labor, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Quarterly Census of Employment and Wages, Current Employment Statistics, Local Area Unemployment Statistics, Unemployment and Training Administration within the U.S. Department of Labor, U.S. Department of Commerce, Bureau of Economic Analysis, Local Area Annual Estimates, Local Area Personal Income, State Annual Estimates, the U.S. Census Bureau, U.S. Department of Education, primarily from the National Center for Education Statistics. It's the Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data Systems, IPADS, which is what all community colleges use across the country. Common Core of Data, Characteristics of Schools in the United States, and the Office of Educational Research and Improvement. So these 9 data sources are compiled, and they are projected on a quarterly basis. When you take a look at something like EDD or some of the other standalone areas that provide data, they usually do a projection once a year, sometimes twice a year, but it's not just in time like EMSI. So that's why EMSI is selected as the primary provider for the Chancellor's Office. So the information that you all have received has come from that data source. Do this, Greg. Okay, one other piece of information I think that's important for you to know is we track a specific program based on standard occupational classifications, they're called SOCs. So you've got SOCs, the Chancellor's Office takes a look at those SOCs and they develop a taxonomy of programs. They also use, in addition to the SOCs, they use classification of instructional programs. These 3, the classification of instructional programs, CIPs and SOCs, are evaluated through the Chancellor's Office, and then a taxonomy of programs is established which defines programs of study and emphasis areas of study underneath those programs. So when you take a look at the programs that we have for career technical education here at Long Beach City College, we had 54. We had 44, we have 37 now with program discontinuance. Those are programs of study. And then we have a number of areas of emphasis. You might think of them as disciplines underneath those areas. But that's how you identify the particular job category to be able to track the number of jobs and the projected job growth in those categories. So for aviation maintenance right there, you can see that the 3 SOC areas that are tracked, and that's what we use for the data. Well, this is, our job growth right here is Long Beach and Los Angeles. The EMSI data looks at the entire country as a whole, but it combines that. What we're primarily interested, though, would be our own state and our regional economy. You know, because we have a responsibility in our service area. We've got a 50 square mile service area and a regional economy, and that's what we try to tie our career technical education programs to. That's our primary service area. This again is a description of the data. So if you take a look for a 5-year period, this is as of a year ago, May 2012, Long Beach was reflecting a 19% decrease, the LA County 1.7 decrease. Just as a piece of information, if you were going to take a look at that data today for Long Beach, it's minus 21.3%. So, okay.
So so access to this data, because you can see as we run through, it comes with a specific report. So it's not something that's available online. It's a large, lengthy report, so we're going to make that available through Vice President Bynum's office. So anyone who's interested in actually sitting down and reviewing that, we've got the contact information for you to do that. So the three discrepancy areas that we talked to are the enrollment data, and you can see where that discrepancy occurred between enrollment and unduplicated headcount. The degree and certificate data, and you can see where that data was pulled from the Chancellor's office, reflecting the data used in program discontinuance. And then the job growth data, and you can see the sources of where that came from, and then where you can be able to review that. So those are the discrepancy pieces in responding to those concerns. I know there was a concern that those weren't accurate, and that's why we wanted to really show you how that data was collected and where that came from. The second part of what we wanted to do today is then talk you through, so there were multiple reasons, multiple components looked at for each of the programs. So I want to walk you through a couple of the programs and the recommendations that were made upon which the discontinuance was based, so you can get a sense of this. So we're going to do interior design, which is located here at LAC, and then we'll do aviation maintenance for PCC. So for each of the programs, there's a program assessment completed. And the reasons for which the recommendation was based for discontinuance for interior design was the extent to which program advances student success, degree to which program duplicates programs offered elsewhere in the service area, and the workplace demand, so the job growth for the program completers. Now, it's important to note as I walk you through this that it's not just one of these pieces, it's all three combined that makes the impact. Okay, so you're going to see here, first is we're going to look at student success in the program. So we're going to walk you back through before how we pulled the degrees and certificates. We'll do that again real quick, and then we're going to look at how you find successful course completion for the programs. Okay, so we'll start with successful course completion. So if you go to the Chancellor's office, again like we did before, there's another query, and this one is under outcomes, retention success rate. Okay, so we'll do the same thing, where we'll go district-wide, Long Beach, select term. So when we ran this, we ran it by using the fall terms. I ran it both ways using fall and spring, and it gives you the same number. So we're going to run fall term, and again, the data we had was from 2005, 6, 2010, 11. So that would be fall 2010 would be the first, would be that last year. So I'm going to hit fall 2010, program type. And you start memorizing, you'll see I memorized the number, but let me show you where it comes from. Under family and consumer science, and then under interior design. Right, that's that 1302. That I will never forget. Okay, and then we're going to do all instructional method, and then review report. So what this is going to show you here at the bottom, it's going to give you this table that will show you for that semester the total enrollment count. Okay, so that 309, the success count. Yeah, right here. And the success rate there. So the enrollment count, the three pieces that you want to look at are the success rate, the 44%, and then you want to look at the enrollment count and success count. And the reason you want to do that is because we looked at a 6-year average. So you want to be able to, okay, if you're like me and you weren't the most data savvy, I just added up all the percentages, and guess what? That doesn't work. You actually have to use the numbers. So you have to go back and pull the total success count from the total enrollments. So, yes. I figured that out a little slow. So that's what you're going to see here. So I went back through for all the programs, and you'll see that 44.98% that we captured for fall 2012, the successful enrollments, and the total enrollments. Okay, so again, I just pulled the same thing I just did, the same query for each of the fall semesters from 2005 to 2010. So then when you add those up and then divide by 6, you end up with that 52.71%. It's a little different from the 52.56%, not entirely, because again, this data is, it's dynamic. So if there's a grade, if someone did an incomplete and then it was successfully completed the course afterward, then that would be a change, for example. So there is some minor changes there. Okay, so you're going to see that 52%. The college-wide average success rate for programs is 63%. So you can see that 52% is low. So that piece there, success. Again, as I showed you before, going to the chancellor's office, I pulled the numbers out for the degrees and certificates, again, for those 6 years, and then added them up, divided by 6 to get the average. And you'll see there the degrees are 3.5. The college data is 3.17. Again, what you're seeing is timing. For example, if you look here, it appears that the chancellor's office degree that was reported in 0506 was probably reported in 0405. It just happened after the deadline in that year. So you can see some of the variances there, why there's minor, but they're very close. And then also for the certificates and degrees, so some of those changes. So what you're seeing is, even with those minor changes, the success rates are very low in this program. So the retention rates are much lower than the average, and then the completion of degrees and certificates are low. And this is where we're pulling the data from. Okay, the second criteria was that job growth, declining job growth. And again, you'll see, as we did before, we identified what that standard occupational classification was. It's nice and simple for interior design. And you'll see that for program discontinuance, it was a growth of 6.5%, and LA County 8.4%, right? What does that mean? If we look at the data, that is a total of 61 jobs within the next 10 years. Oh, no, currently available in Long Beach, 61 jobs. Over the next 10 years in Long Beach, 185. What you're seeing below then are all of the other interior design programs within 50 miles. So if you look at the number of programs, number of colleges that offer this, and you look at the growth, 185 jobs over the next 10 years, you can see that we have low success rates and there's not a lot of job growth in this industry. Ooh, what did I miss? Right. The other one was, and then you'll see here the offered by nearby colleges. So looking at those three pieces there is why this program appeared on program discontinuance. So low success rates, not a lot of job growth, and then lots of other providers of the degree program. Aviation maintenance had some of the criteria were a little bit different. So when we looked at aviation maintenance, and again, you have to look at all four of them together. So the first one is the cost of the program relative to the number of students served, the declining projected local employment growth, student access as measured by weekly student contact hours versus full-time equivalent faculty. I will explain that very simply. That's some of the jargon we have. And then program is offered at nearby colleges. Okay, so the first piece is the cost of the program per student. So there were some questions about this, so I wanted to break it down and actually show you how this works. This cost is an estimate. It's actually a little bit higher for full-time faculty, but typically we estimate that a full-time faculty member is about $110,000 with salary and benefits. So for full-time faculty is 440. It's a little higher than that because our faculty have actually been here a while. So 60,000 part-time faculty in overload classes, and then we do an average equipment replacement cost of 600,000. When we did the cost and ran the actual, the first two equaled, instead of equaling 500,000, they equaled 732,000. And then we had a lower equipment replacement cost for this last year, but they still came in above the 600,000. So 600,000 is a good estimate as we built this. So the annual cost is 600,000, and then what we do is we divide that by the completion rates. So the number of degrees and certificates, and you remember we went back through that. So you do the 9 plus the 6.5 equals the 15.5, and you divide that, you get the 38,700. That's where that number is coming from. This is a high-cost program. It's not the only high-cost program at the college. Our associate degree in nursing is a high-cost program. DMI is a high-cost program. And so that's why you're going to look at this in conjunction with the other criteria that are presented. So you have to look at all of them together. Trustee Troya.
The question Trustee Troya raised is, if you're not counting the FAA certificates, how can you do this math? How can you divide this? Because you're leaving out numbers that Trustee Troya feels should be in there. And again, I'll refer you back to my comments earlier. If you're comparing the cost of an associate's degree, it's a different cost structure than offering just an FAA certificate. Okay, we are not, our numbers do not count the FAA certificates because we're not awarding Chancellor's Office degrees and certificates. So you would need very different cost structure to award degrees and certificates. Again, these are college level degrees and certificates. So the costs that are associated with awarding a degree and certificate are specific to that. If we were just awarding the FAA certificates, that would be a much lower cost structure. So we are required to count degrees and certificates because the full-time faculty, their qualifications are specific to awarding degrees and certificates. The program is developed to include offering courses that lead to the degree and certificate, so that cost structure is very different. So that's why the FAA certificates are not counted, because it wouldn't be fair to all programs. I mean, for example, the associate degree in nursing, we count degrees and certificates. We count the associate degrees specific to that program. Now, there are a number of other certificates that could probably be awarded that are specific to an industry, but we don't count them because we've designed through the curriculum an associate's degree. And I realize that causes some confusion, but the cost structures that we generate for all of our degree programs are specific to these kinds of mathematical functions. You could say the same thing for just about every program that is somewhat career technical education related. Automotive would be the same thing. There could be some specific certificates that are specific to an employer or to an industry that we don't count, and we don't count in our cost structure. Andrea? Right. Right. Let me repeat Andrea's question. She said that many students do not need the degree. They need the FAA certificate. And I think that is a great point, Andrea, and I made that point a little earlier. We do not need a college degree and certificate program to offer the FAA certification. It costs us a lot less just to offer the FAA certification. And if that's the student need, then you've just made my case to discontinue aviation maintenance. Because the degree program, we don't need that huge cost structure. We can do it for a lot less cost and give the students what they need. So I agree with your point, actually, and that is the discussion that we're having now, is trying to tailor the program so that it just focuses on FAA certification and those FAA certifications that are required by local employers. So that's what we're trying to get to. And so, although you hear the discussion about discontinuing the degree program, what you're not hearing is the discussion to figure out which components to offer to the local employers. And that conversation is happening now. But again, you don't need this cost structure to offer an associate's degree to be able to offer the specific employer-related certificate. Yes, go ahead. The question Andrea raised is, why aren't the students part of any discussions that are going on with local employers regarding offering FAA certificates? First of all, we are early in those discussions, and I see no reason, if we get to a certain point in those discussions, why we couldn't include some of the students in terms of what is going to be offered. But these are very specific to the employer. It's the employer who wants the students with the certification. So these discussions are with the employer first. You know, we're trying to do this for the benefit of the students, as the concerns have been raised by several of the students, and the specific concern that you raised, which is students want the FAA certification, they don't necessarily want the degree. So we have heard the concerns, and we're trying to address them. Now, just for a point of reference, you raised Title V. Title V is specific to degree and certificate programs. What we're trying to do is accomplish this goal by going through and creating instructional service agreements with specific employer groups. Those are very different than certificate and degree programs. We can still do that. We do that, for example, with police and fire in the city, with a number of other employers. But I think as we progress, I think we can do everything we can to involve the students in the program and let them know what's happening. And our hope is that we can get to a point where we can offer these certification courses. Now, we do need some support from the faculty in that program. Ultimately, the faculty who have the certification to teach it have to teach it. But I think we can get there over time. There's a question in the back. We can certainly do that. Thank you for that. And certainly, Luann and Dr. Peterson will be here afterwards to answer specific questions. Back to you.
Right. So again, the cost of the program, looking at that, and again, there are other high-cost programs, so we're looking at all these pieces together. So you look at the high cost of the program, and then as we talked through before in the data discrepancy, we talked about the declining job growth, and you're seeing here significant declines. A lot of this has been a long time coming in Long Beach, as we know, as for example, Boeing has been pulling. So there's been some changes in our local economy. So you've got a high cost program, declining job growth in the local area. And then we look at this idea of student access and trying to simplify this into how the state funds us, right? Because the state has to figure out what is fair in the amount of money that they provide for students for programs. And how they do that is they measure what they call productivity. So as a benchmark, the state assumes that a full-time faculty member should be teaching approximately 5 3-unit courses with 35 students enrolled in each class. And so that equals the magic number of 525 that you hear a lot, right? 5 classes times 3 units times 35 students, right? Now, as we know, classes are different in units. Some are 2, some are 4. We know the sizes of classes vary as well, but the expectation is that a college is getting as close to the 525 as possible because that's what they're getting funded at. That's what the state's saying is, this is how much money you need if you've got a class of 35. When we look at all career technical education programs, they tend to be a little bit smaller. And so our average over 6 years is 471, which is about 31 students a class versus the 35. So it's a little bit smaller, but that would make sense for the type of courses that are offered in these programs. Aviation maintenance is a lot smaller at 351, so that's about 23 students. So you can see that we're 12 students below that what the productivity level is for the state. So why is that important? Because again, we're getting funded based on having 35 students in a class. When we have 23, that impacts our funding. And the funding then impacts the services we can provide, the courses that we can offer, generally all that we can do at the college. So that's why they're connected. So we have to be looking at what the state deems productive. Trustee Troya. And yeah, let me touch this real quick. Is that Trustee Troya mentioned that there are limits on enrollment in some of these programs. For example, there are limits on enrollment on nursing, the number of students that are allowed in a nursing course. So again, as I mentioned before, this alone, this one criteria alone might not lead to program discontinuance. But when you look at, again, high cost, low job growth, and then the small amount, when you put all these pieces together, you're seeing that the cost, the success of this program is much lower. So that's why it gets considered for program discontinuance. The other piece to look at again is as we looked at the jobs available over the next 10 years, and again, you're seeing here other colleges in the area that offer programs. We included Crimson Technical College, which is a for-profit. They pump out over 200 certificates a year. I mean, so there's a high saturation of students who are completing these in the area. There's a high cost to offer the program, and there's not a lot of growth. So that's giving you a sense of why this program was considered for program discontinuance. Okay, so again, these are the criteria we went through and the data that we're pulling. For all of the programs, we want to be able to have you be able to access this on your own, but also if you've got questions, that we can meet with you in small groups or one-on-one and walk you through any program that you're specifically interested in. One I would recommend if you're interested in sitting down and walking through with us would be audio production, because it's unique in that it's a subset of a larger one. So it's not as easy to go on the chancellor's office and pull out like interior design, which is a full group, because it's a subset. So there's a little bit more work involved there. So that would be one that I'd recommend if you're interested, and set up a time that we can meet and walk you through those specifics. But any of these programs that you're interested in, we can walk through. I've also listed here, and this will be available, again, where these data sources are, so you can on your own access the data. The key is to understand that this is where the data came from, this is the process in place. We're not trying to hide anything in this process, and where there appears to be discrepancies, there's reasons for where that data piece is that we can show you and walk you through so you can see for yourself. Again, as Vice President Bynum mentioned, I just wanted to note this, is that when we talk about those programs and changes, so in 2011, we had, according to the larger codes, the SOC, the occupational codes, for programs, we had 46 of them in 2011 here at Long Beach City College. So we'll have decreased that to 37 next year with the program discontinuance. That said, because of increases in certificates and degrees that are going to be offered through the curriculum process, we'll actually go from offering 148 degree and certificate options in 2011 to 182 degree and certificate options available in career technical education programs in 2013. So you can see that there's a concern that we're stepping away from career technical education programs, and that's not the case. We are growing in the offerings we have in these programs. Yes. So the question is, can we get some examples of where some of those changes have occurred in degree and certificate options? So Vice President Lowenstein mentioned that the computer science department had recently have 4 or 5 new certificates available through their program that were just approved through the curriculum process. Business administration is another example of that. Right. A source to find some of the examples that are coming through the curriculum process they do come to the board under the Academic Senate report. So the question is, the increase in degrees and certificate option offered, will they be offered at the Pacific Coast campus, since we know that there's been reduction of some of the discontinued programs there? And the answer is yes. The goal, as if you see, is we are expanding the comprehensive nature of the courses offered at the Pacific Coast campus with the new buildings coming online that allows us to offer classes we weren't able to offer before. So we'll be continuing to expand that. The last slide I wanted to show you and then open up to questions is, again, the sense of there's been lots of questions about the teach-out schedule, so what's going to be offered in the summer. All of these courses are available online on the summer schedule online, but I just wanted to pull out so you can see which of these courses are there. Okay. So with that said, what additional questions are there?
Andrea raised a question as to whether or not we can lay off faculty because of the reasons that have been cited. And I'm not going to make a legal interpretation. What I can tell you is that the college has followed every required procedure, has worked with the faculty union to go through all those required procedures, and all of those cases have gone through an administrative law judge that has ruled that all of those layoffs are legal. Yes, back here. Yes, the question was with regard to some of the goals that we have had at the college. One of them is to pursue external funding sources. We have aggressively pursued external funding sources. I think some of the more recent funding sources that we've accessed are the Lumina Foundation's Latino Student Success Grant, which provides us resources to continue to work with the community to improve Latino student success in the community. And that directly aligns with the board's goals to continue to work to and improve the Long Beach College Promise and to improve student success in general. We have applied for a number of economic development and workforce development grants, and ask Ms. Bynum to get with you afterwards to give you a list of all of those grants. But we've had a number of those grants come in, which have provided either direct workforce training to displaced workers or have provided funds to work within our curriculum process to enhance career technical education programs. So we continue to pursue those sources. We've also received a number of grants and support for the other parts of the college, such as the economic development part, which is we're working to improve small business development in the community as well, so that we can generate jobs in the community. So if you want a specific report on all of those, I'm sure Vice President Bynum can provide you a list just in the last year of all the grants and awards that we've received. Back there in the back. Yes. The question that was raised was regarding financial aid and whether or not the college is pursuing any additional sources of aid that would help students who have already been here more than 6 years or are on academic probation or otherwise not able to access federal student loans. How can we help? And you know, Long Beach City College has one of the largest financial aid programs in the entire state of California. We're typically number 1 or 2 with the Los Rios district, which is a much larger district than us. So we definitely have a huge need in our community. We have a very active foundation which provides scholarships. We have the Board of Governors fee waiver, which most of our students are eligible for. Nearly 80% of our students access the Board of Governors fee waiver. So we try through our financial aid office to provide as many options to you as a student as possible, which is why we have one of the largest financial aid programs in the state. Having said all that, I understand that you still have many challenges in getting the aid that you need, and many times students are forced to get loans. We continue to work with the state government and federal government to promote more access to Pell through the federal government, which is your primary source of financial aid from the federal government, and Cal Grants in California, and we'll continue to do that work. But other than that, those are the primary sources of aid, and we continue to do everything we can to bring as many of those sources to our students. I think we have 2 questions back here. The question was, does program discontinuance have anything to do with the changing in the academic calendar from 18 weeks to 16 weeks? Is that your question? The answer to that question is no. They're really 2 different issues. The whole college went to a compressed calendar, 16-week. It doesn't really change our cost structure. It just compresses the calendar. And the primary reason for that is to provide more opportunities for students so that we can offer a winter intersession, not just a summer intersession. We haven't had that opportunity yet because state funding has been cut so much, but we do have that option coming up so that students can access more courses during the academic year. Over here. I think that's a great question. The question was, one of the goals was to promote collegiality throughout the college. And so what steps are we taking? And we happen to have our Academic Senate president here as well. And I can tell you that this has been a primary concern to all of the leadership, myself, the Academic Senate president, the full-time faculty union president, and the part-time faculty union president. We have discussed this at length. This has been a very difficult time over the last 3 years for not just our college, but for every college in the state of California. There's been a lot of changes thrust upon our institutions, whether that be the increased scrutiny on accountability, the dawning of student learning outcomes, which requires faculty to really change the way they look at how students are achieving what they're supposed to achieve. So there's been a great deal thrust upon us, not to mention the changes that we just talked about today. I'm committed to continuing to work with the faculty leadership to find ways to improve our relationship and to improve their working conditions. We've been working specifically with the faculty union to look at ways that we could do that. I think we are beginning to see progress in those areas, but a lot of it has to do with the climate that we're in and the changes that we've had to go through. This college has been around for 85 years. It's very difficult to change the culture of the college, and we're right in the middle of that. So, yes, you're right. There has been a lot of friction. It's unfortunate that that friction shows up in the classroom, and that's something that we need to resist. That is something that we as professional educators need to keep within ourselves and find solutions for. So I'm committed to continuing to do that, and I think we will make progress over the next couple of semesters. Yeah, yes, Jason. Yes, Trustee Troya asked the question. Go ahead. Okay. Trustee Troya asked the question as to why we are looking to hire faculty and why there's been a discussion with the faculty union about salary increases. Is that correct? Well, first of all, with regard to the faculty union, we continuously discuss things that are related specifically to their wages and working conditions with the union, as well as with the classified union and the part-time faculty union. That's an ongoing function of the college. The college has a commitment to discuss with the faculty union issues that they raise and how we might be able to accomplish those. The faculty union has repeatedly requested discussions about salary and working conditions. So I'm not sure what specific discussions you're referring to, but those are confined to negotiation. And any salary increase that happens either now or into the future has to be negotiated between the two parties and then approved by the board. So right now there is no salary increase. If you're referring to the question I was asked recently at the union's rep council, I was asked whether or not there will be an opportunity to begin discussing salary anytime soon. And my answer was, once the governor comes out with his January 2014 budget and we see that there is budget stability, then we can begin having those discussions in negotiation. With regard to faculty, we are primarily driven by student demand at this college. We have tremendous student demand in particular courses. Those core courses in the social sciences, English, math. We have not had an opportunity to fill that demand with faculty because the state has frozen our funding over the last several years and frozen the number of faculty that we're required to hire. So we are behind in terms of the number of full-time faculty we should have. The number of full-time faculty we have is governed by statute. We have an actual formula that's in place that tells us how many full-time faculty we should have. So irrespective of what we're doing, that number exists. And we have to continue to try and reach that goal, that number of full-time faculty. So over the next several years, we're going to begin seeing additional revenue, and we will be required to hire full-time faculty, so that's why that discussion is taking place. Andrea, and then back here. Mhm. Well, Andrea, I mean, the question is trying to understand California's educational code and how it's applied to our college and every college in the state. You know, first of all, California Education Code is put into regulation. Those regulations are governed by the Board of Governors for the California Community College Chancellor's Office. So specifically, faculty hiring is in regulation through the Chancellor's Office. We adopt certain regulations to comply with how that's interpreted. But your interpretation of California Education Code may not be specific to the practices that the Board of Governors has employed to meet the requirements of California Education Code. So these are nuances that I realize are difficult for someone just looking at Education Code versus the regulations that we're required to follow. And, you know, if you wanted to spend some time at some point walking through some of those questions, I'd be happy to do that. I'm sure Dr. Peterson would be happy to do that. And we'd be happy to sit down with you. I don't know if ASB President Lorenzini or Student Trustee Troya has shared with you the legal opinions that we've given them, but we feel that we have clearly followed all California Education Code and our own Brown Act. So I'm not sure what discrepancies you're speaking of specifically, but I would love for you to put those down specifically so that we can walk you through, just as we have here. I don't know that the entire body that's here today wants to walk through all of those, but I want to make sure that we have enough time to answer their questions. Well, they're readily available on the California Community College Chancellor's Office website. Back here. Yes. Mm-hmm. The question was the staff support, particularly psychologists in the Student Health Center as it relates to our funding. Certainly, the Student Health Center is funded specifically through student fees, and a lot of that revenue is based on the level of enrollment we have at the college. We've had a decline in enrollment over the last several years. So places like the Student Health Center have seen a decline in enrollment. But specifically to the staffing, I'd have to refer you to Dr. Peterson to look specifically at the Student Health Center as where that growth is. I don't have that off the top of my head, but those are certainly questions that arise quite a bit. What are the best services to have for the greatest number of students? And I know they're constantly struggling with that balance. So I'd be happy to refer you to Dr. Peterson specifically on that question. Yes. Mm-hmm. Right. The question that's raised is specific to student loans and who to talk to if you're having any issues with student loans. All I can say right now is the best place to get information and advice about student loans would be through our financial aid office. And I realize that they are impacted with many, many questions, specifically with incoming students. But I would try to make an appointment with a financial aid counselor to get that question resolved. Student loans can be a very tricky issue. I mean, we don't have direct control over the student loan process, but we have people in the financial aid office who could give you very good advice on how to best approach that. So I would recommend that you park yourself in the financial aid office, try to get an appointment as soon as you can, and make folks aware of your concern. I know we're going over the time, but I'll be happy to answer a few more questions. Yes. Mhm. So the question is, there has been concerns raised that we are reducing the number of courses in programs like the music department and offering more general education courses that lead to degree completion or to transfer. That question really is a separate issue from what we're talking about today. What you're referring to is the changes in state policy around course repeatability. So the state recently changed its regulations around course repeatability. So in the past, students could take a course multiple times, and this primarily impacts the performing arts area, music, performing arts, because many students, for example, learning a particular instrument or in singing would take a class multiple times to perfect their craft. The state will no longer fund us for those repeat courses, so that's why you see a reduction in those courses, and then we are shifting those resources to courses that are of greatest demand for the students. So that course reduction was going to happen anyway, and has been happening in all of our colleges because of the changes outside of our control here. We just made the commitment that we would shift those resources to courses of greatest demand for students. The faculty in those programs are working with deans to figure out how to go forward. Is there a way to modify a curriculum to try and deal with some of these changes and the impact on students? But ultimately, it's the state of California that no longer wants to fund those repeat courses, and we have to find a way to deal with that. And as we do, put those resources in a place where it's going to impact students the greatest. Yes, we'll take one more question. So the question that was raised is, what are we doing for students who may not be able to access the summer courses, and how are we helping them complete their program of study or to take those courses to another college? There's a lot of work being done around that as we speak. We are trying to identify all the students who could benefit from these courses, making sure that they get information about the courses, trying to get them set up with appointments with counselors, We are working with our own articulation officer to ensure that the courses that we have articulate to the other colleges. So I'm not sure where you're getting your information, but I would recommend that as you continue to have those questions, you bring them up with Dr. Peterson, who can specifically resolve those questions as soon as they come up, and to ensure that if there's any students out there who have questions or concerns about where they're at in the process, that either they raise those questions to their faculty members or see a counselor as soon as possible, because we have made counselors available for all the programs. Mm-hmm. 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 We have been addressing the concerns that have come up at the board meetings. We think that we have addressed them based on the questions that have come up from those students, and we've been personally in touch with those students. So if you have specific concerns or questions, I would say document them specific to the students that are expressing those concerns, and get those to Dr. Peterson so that we can personally reach out to those students and find out what they're lacking. How would you like to handle that, Dr. Peterson?
I know the one group that we're reaching out to this week is auto body, auto mechanic, and diesel. So I know that is occurring this week. At the last student forum, some students approached me about questions there, so we're specifically going to those classrooms this week. But I would say have them contact my office, and then we'll do that. I've been meeting with students over the last couple months, and so that's not a problem.
Okay. With that, I'm just going to make a few closing comments. First of all, I want to thank those of you who came out and asked questions. I really appreciate it because, I think there's been some unfortunate characterizations about what's been happening. Certainly, there's been no intent to mislead. It's unfortunate that comments have been made specific to the integrity of the leadership at the college, whether that be the administration or the faculty. I think those are unfortunate, especially since those questions were never raised specifically with any one group. And again, I'll repeat that I've asked Student Trustee Troya to provide me with all of his concerns, information that led to his questions, discrepancies, and so we hope to get that so we can work specifically with that information and be able to provide direct responses to that data. We hope that we've provided some of those responses here. Again, this is not a question of misleading. This certainly is a question of whether or not data sources, where we get our data sources, how we interpret the data, how we interpret our process, and certainly everyone is can question the decision. Questioning the decision is everyone's right, whether you be faculty, staff, student, and that's certainly something that that is up for debate. What is not up for debate is whether or not anybody tried to mislead anyone. I think that's just an unfortunate attack on people who work at this college specifically to support students. And so with that, I'm going to close, and we'll be back at the Pacific Coast campus tomorrow. And if you have any colleagues, any friends out there amongst the student body, I would encourage you to have them come by. So again, we can walk through the same information with them and hopefully provide a little bit better understanding of exactly how we get from where we began last year in the spring of 2012 to where we are today. So thank you for coming.